Martin North, John Adams, in the interest of the people. Hello, John.
Hello, sir.
So the denouement is going to happen quite soon.
Yes. We have some big news to break. So the next and final public hearing for the cash ban is happening on the 30th of January 2020 in Sydney. And in the last few days, I have received an official invitation by the Senate, particularly the bureaucrats who work in the Senate committee. They have sent me an invitation to say that the Senate has requested for me to attend and to provide testimony. So I have accepted that invitation. So I had to send some paperwork today. So I've done that this morning. So basically at 10 a.m. Thursday, the 30th of January, I will be there in front of the senators arguing the case for why the cash transaction ban is bad law. And so, this will be, my opportunity, but the opportunity of this show and our audience to communicate to the Australian Senate. The inquiry to date has received 2,659 submissions. A typical inquiry may receive only about 50 submissions. I would say at least 90%, if not more, of the submissions came because of our show. The very first show that we did, we got, I think the last time I looked at about 93,000 views. So we really sort of did a really impactful show, which was about sort of ScoMo declaring war on the Australian people. And that got a lot of other people across the country talking, some of our colleagues on YouTube, the crypto community, and a whole bunch of, in terms of business groups and a whole bunch of other sort of constituencies who took our lead in terms of these issues.
So, John, I've got one question for you. What is the real significance of this particular hearing so close to the end of their reporting process? Because the report's going to be out on the 7th of Feb. So
what we know, Martin, is that the committee has to report to the full Senate on the 7th of February, unless if it could be extended, and maybe with Senator Gallagher having to withdraw, there could be some sort of extension. But separate to that, 7th of February, so we're basically 2 weeks away from the committee report being handed to the full Senate. My expectation is that even though some of the business groups say extend, don't implement it straight away, because business need time to get ready for this law, I'm expecting that in the week of the 10th of February, the law will come for a vote. And I probably have to say that the way I see it now, it is more likely to pass than for it not to pass. We're getting very troubling signals in terms of Labor. If I was a betting man, I would say that at this point Labor will vote for it, and I think they are captured by particular vested interests, and that's why they'll vote for it. So that apparently the Greens they haven't come to a formal view. I would still hope that they would vote against this, but we can't be guaranteed now. But we have some new intelligence over the last 24 hours, so the Greens may be they could go either way on this issue. So this hearing is important because this is our last opportunity. You and I have been doing shows on this since late July, so it's more than 6 months. Next week is our last opportunity to make our final case to Parliament as to why this is bad law. Once this hearing is over, the only thing that we can do and our viewers can do is to contact MPs directly and to make private representations. That may be effective or not, but no, next week is the ultimate showdown between the forces of freedom and tyranny. And if we fail to make a persuasive case, I will expect that in 3 weeks this will become law, it will be a bad situation, not just for all the people who put in a lot of hours to fight this campaign, but I think it will be a huge regressive step for Australia and the freedom of Australians going forward.
Yeah, John, you are our last best hope.
So, there are a lot of people on YouTube, talking about various things, but I guess, one of the things I would want to communicate to our audiences is that, we're not just here saying the things we're saying because we enjoy economics, even though I do. We are actually here to do something quite serious, and the seriousness of what we're doing has led us to not only provide submissions to the Senate inquiry, but it's now led to an invitation to testify, and so this will be my chance to talk, and so now there will be an opportunity for people to attend and listen in the public gallery. So the entire inquiry goes from 9 a.m. through to 3 p.m. I think there'll be about a 1 hour lunch break. I will have half an hour. I will have a 5-minute opening statement and 25 minutes of questions. So people can come to 207 Kent Street, Portside Centre, and listen live to the whole day, or just for my testimony if they wish. There will be no video, but there will be live audio, so people can go to the Australian Parliament House website and actually download the live link, and they'll be able to listen to the inquiry in real time if people wish to do that. All the work we've done, and we've done a lot of episodes about this particular issue. My task in the next few days is to surmise all of the content that we've done and all the research, and to crystallize the summation of the debate and to argue the case for freedom in front of the Senate.
Well, congratulations, John, because you've been doing a lot of the analysis, a lot of the leading of thought on this. And I think it really does demonstrate that the interest of the people is more than just a YouTube channel, right? We're here to make a difference to Australia and Australians.
Correct.
So let's hope that the hearing goes well. We don't know yet whether Labor will be participating, do we?
For the public hearing to happen, quorum must be achieved, and quorum is defined as at least one government senator and one senator from the opposition. So there will be a Labor senator, and so for some of our viewers who may not be aware, Senator Gallagher from South Australia, he's withdrawn from the inquiry because of a health issue. So there will be, so on the committee there are technically two Labor senators, and the other one is I think Senator McAllister from New South Wales. So it's either her or another senator will be attending for Labor. So there will be a Labor senator. There will be there'll be at least a coalition senator, and the chair, Senator Slater Brockman, he typically will be there. He was there for the first one, and we may see Senator Rex Patrick as well. So quite interesting, given that I used to work with the chair. So in 2012-13, the chairman of the committee was a advisor to Senator Cormann, and I was an advisor to Senator Senadinos, and so we're former work colleagues. And now I'll be cross-examined by former work colleagues. So that'll be a very interesting experience, but in terms of what my testimony will be, I mean, it'll be a couple of basic elements. The international evidence says that the black economy over the last 2 to 3 decades in Australia has been shrinking. The Black Economy Task Force says, no, the black economy is actually growing. So dispute there, number one. Number two is that on the issue of tax evasion, the government says that this is the principal reason for the law. My case will be 2 or 3 points on that. First one is the evidence from Europe, and the Austrians in particular say these cash transaction bans, and the Austrian threshold is much lower than 10,000. It makes bugger all difference to helping the fight with tax evasion, number one. But if you want to dismiss the Austrian example, the general consensus across Europe is, the lower the better. So this is one of the points that the Uniting Church made, that if you want to make this effective on tax evasion, 10,000 is too high. So if the government is serious about trying to clamp down on people in small business evading tax, they have to go lower than 10,000. Now, I don't want the ban at all at 10,000 or anything, but if these guys are serious about this issue of tax evasion, the evidence suggests that 10,000 is not going to work. And why did we get 10,000? Well, we found out in the last hearing that they completely made it up in terms of the Black Economy Task Force. So I mean that would be some of the points on tax evasion. The other big point is that in the last couple of months we've seen an article from the ABC, which they report about data from the Australian Tax Office, and said that 1/3 of large corporations pay no tax in Australia for a whole host of legal loopholes in terms of the tax system. A lot of these, some of these are Australian-based companies, some of these are foreign multinationals. But if the issue is not enough tax revenue, the big end of town have deeper pockets. They have an ability to pay more tax, and the government and the parliament should be more focused on that sector of the economy rather than taking my freedom away, because the government, in its own words, say we don't know how much revenue that this measure is going to generate. So you're going to take my freedom away. You're not sure how much tax revenue you're going to generate from this. And by the way, all of the all the fat cats who actually contribute to the two major parties are basically getting away with huge legal loopholes and escaping millions and billions of dollars in terms of tax liabilities. So I will argue that on the issue of tax evasion, the Parliament's not serious about tax evasion because there are all sorts of other mechanisms that they could pursue for that. And even if they were to pursue that, one point to make is that with this whole rort over sporting grants, why should we pay our taxes anyway? Just so that politicians can actually bribe, people before an election. I mean, call it pork barreling, call it whatever you call it, whatever you want. I have seen this sort of behaviour throughout my life in this country, where politicians think they can buy votes, and this sporting scandal is a classic example of what happened. So we pay our taxes because we want legitimate services, and yet politicians actually use tax revenue in an inappropriate way, and it goes it raises questions in people's minds as to what's the purpose of paying tax if the money is going to be misused. So that's the issue on tax. Then the other issue then becomes in terms of the other elements of the black economy, money laundering. And criminal gangs, etc. So on the issue of money laundering, this is something you included in your submission, and I included my submission. The key risk around money laundering. So obviously, the first point to make is the current framework is broken because Westpac basically had 23 million breaches. So if you want to actually crack down on money laundering, make sure that the existing framework, that is effective first. Separate to that, the OECD has said that the biggest risk around money laundering in Australia is real estate. And Austrac in their testimony said that this law will not actually address that particular risk. So the testimony from Austrac was that this law will actually address so-called high-value dealers, jewelers, people who deal in particular artworks, collectibles, etc. This will help in that sector, even though that's not the main area. Or that's not an area that's been characterised as high risk around money laundering. So again, there have been multiple opportunities for both major parties in the last decade to address the risk of money laundering in the real estate sector, and Parliament has not acted on that. So it's clear to me that Parliament is not serious about money laundering, because if they did, they would have addressed this risk that people from the international community has called out Australia, saying we need to do more on that, particularly because there are suspicions that a lot of hot money, illicit money coming out of China is coming through the Australian economy, through the real estate sector. And this was, I think, a part of the testimony of the Uniting Church in the first hearing about Chinese money being washed through the real estate sector, and yet this law will actually do nothing to actually address that. So that's the issue on money laundering, and then obviously we get into the last big component is about this issue of negative interest rates. And today you've actually posted a new video on Walk the World about how negative interest rates have actually impacted particular bank customers in terms of Switzerland. And so the people have called us conspiracy theorists, Aaron Patrick from the Australian Financial Review, and a whole host of other people. But I will be taking all of the documents, all of the quotations that we've used on this program, I'll be taking them to the Senate and saying, we didn't make this up. These are the documents. If negative interest rates are to work, cash has to be eliminated. That is the agenda. And it was actually quite interesting that in the Walk the World video you just posted today, Christine Lagarde said that even though there are some side effects, negative interest rates is actually a net positive for Europeans. I found that an extraordinary statement.
Well, I did too. And there's a rising sort of swelling view around the place that negative interest rates haven't worked. Right, yeah. And they can never work by definition.
Absolutely.
So in fact, the whole concept of going into negative interest rates and trying to use that to push people to spend more hasn't worked. And in fact, of course, we know in some Scandinavian countries have now started lift rates again. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. John, the other point I wanted to make was Andrew Wilkie made the point in the lower house when this was debated that there is already a bunch of existing legislation which would actually work quite well in terms of dealing with some of the criminal aspects which this bill was trying to solve. But we don't need this bill because it's about the execution and the enforcement of the existing legislation.
Precisely.
And surely the point is also to be made that even if you follow the cash ban and try to implement it, the implementation would be ridiculously difficult to do. There's no clear way as to how it would be policed. And of course, we've got very much black letter law, so there's no issue about the motivation. It's basically you did or you didn't.
Precisely.
But that needs a certain degree of evidence to be caught, which takes you towards a significantly more enhanced surveillance state. So I think that freedom aspect and the lack of enforceability in the current law is also another reason why the cash ban doesn't make any sense.
Martin, I think you made a great point. In terms of the enforceability of the law, we heard from the Law Council of Australia that that it is very hard to secure a prosecution because you need effectively some sort of eyewitness to actually see that a cash transaction has actually occurred. And what that means is that you're going to have you will have an arbitrary justice system, arbitrary enforcement, because not everyone's going to get caught. Very hard to catch people out, and then obviously we know that in certain cases people will actually lie in courts in order to be able to get people off or to accuse people of doing something when that transaction when that never occurred. Because the example could be just say you and I didn't conduct a transaction and we were accused by someone, say no, Martin and John did. Well, we have a natural inclination to say we didn't. And so who was the court to believe? Someone who said they saw it, or two people said who didn't. Now, and obviously the case is that if we didn't, we could actually be framed for a crime that we never did. So a lot of he said, she said sort of cases could potentially come up, and that obviously will mean very hard to actually secure prosecution. So I thought the testimony from the Law Council was very important. And then in terms of who will be responsible in terms of the law, the evidence that was given by the government witnesses was that no central agency will be responsible, and basically it's going to be like a bit of a hot potato. If there's a criminal issue, AFP, and there'll be a Black Economy Task Force hotline being run by Treasury. Maybe there'll be a couple of things coming out of the ATO, but I've seen these things, as a former bureaucrat, when you don't have someone responsible for something, like communication lines get, that they can get crossed over, things fall through the cracks, and you don't get proper enforcement, you don't get a proper bureaucratic process. So I think the enforcement will be sloppy, and then if it ever got to court, the ability to secure a prosecution, I think that would be quite difficult. So I think they're very valid points, and I'll hopefully try to make some of those points in my opening statement as well. Well,
John, all power you to Elbow next week, and I guess we'll report back after the hearing to see how it went.
Yes, and the other final point I'll make is that because there has been some questions in the last couple of days, as I've posted on social media, who were the other witnesses? So that has not been released yet. So it could well be that it won't be until the day before that we'll have the full list of in terms of witnesses. But it's sort of interesting that in the first hearing we had in the afternoon the government witnesses, and then we had a whole bunch of non-government witnesses, and of the non-government witnesses only one was for, everyone else against. So it'll be interesting to see. So we know that I'll be fighting against this law next week, but in terms of the other potential witnesses, or how many of them will actually argue for this and how many argue will actually against this, I think that could be quite potent, and because we actually have notice about this hearing in terms of coming up, what we know is that the gallery is going to be chock-a-block. So there will be a lot of people who watch this show who are, and I know some people are flying from interstate to come, and it should be a very tense and emotional event.
Yeah, let the battle commence.
Absolutely.
John, appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Good luck. Martin North, John Adams, Interested People. We'll see you next time.